This is The Secret Library, a podcast about writing and publishing books. I'm Caroline Donahue, a life coach who works with writers, and I'm here to tell you this is your year. It's time to stop waiting and start writing. The Secret Library podcast is brought to you by our amazing supporters over at our Patreon. You can check it out to get access to solo episodes with me, as well as the opportunity to submit questions for custom Q&A episodes at some of our levels. It's over at patreon.com/secretlibrary. This is episode 146 of the Secret Library podcast. My guest this week is Kusi Okamura, who is a writer, editor, and publisher here in Berlin. She is the editor and creator of the Wild Word magazine and also the publisher that put out Mike Hembury's book, you'll remember, New Clone City, from several episodes ago. It was a real treat to talk with Kusi about the process of creating the magazine, as well as a topic that I think many of us think about, which is the urgency and the need we feel as women to create as we get to 40 and beyond. We also got into how little we see ourselves represented in literature and in characters at this age and beyond, and how important and wonderful it is to see writers over 40 getting more attention, because we think this is such an amazing time to be writing. And as a writer myself who's over 40, she was definitely preaching to the choir when we got into this topic. And it was really fun to explore. I know you'll feel inspired by this, as well as getting to see the inner workings of how someone took an idea, a dream she had of creating, and made it into a magazine that's now been going for 3 years and has published many, many writers and is really a thriving cultural presence in Berlin. So here we go with Kusi Okamura. Hi, Kusi. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Caroline.
So it was a treat to meet you for many reasons, but one of which was the discovery that not only had you started a literary magazine, The Wild Word, but had about a year and a half ago now, or just over a year ago, I suppose, added a publishing arm to the magazine. So I could not resist having you on. And listeners will know that Kusi is the one who published the author that we heard a couple of weeks ago, Mike Hembury. His book, New Clone City, is the one that came out through The Wild Word. So can you take us back to the beginning of what made you think, okay, I have this literary magazine going. I think I'd like to add a publishing element.
I think it was in the same kind of spirit that I started the magazine. The magazine came out of, well, I had been a stay-at-home mom, and I had been in this very intense parenting period. And I'm Irish, my husband's American, we live in Berlin, we don't have extended family here, so it was all very intense, and it's a new culture. And so I basically was looking after the kids for 5 years, and not having like a creative thought whatsoever. And then finally my second went into Kita here, which is the kindergarten, and then it was like I was like a racehorse who, they store up the energy at the beginning, and the shutter comes up, and I just went go, and all this flood of creative ideas came in, and I decided I said to my husband, I'm going to start an online magazine. And so in 2 weeks, I designed the website, got it all, got all the comments together, and I mean, I was very lucky to be surrounded by lots of artists and writers, and it really came out fully formed, like this third child, and in that kind of same spirit, I don't know why I felt really eternally optimistic, and kind of like whatever creative idea or wish that I had, I felt like, I'm going to do it. And so I had Mike is the environmental columnist for the magazine, and I had seen some of his fiction writing. He had brought it to me, and I said, this is really great. It was really, really, really great. And I said, you should write a novel. And he was kind of humming and hawing. And then I met him a couple of times and I said, no, you really should. And, if you write the novel, I will publish you. And I must have been very persuasive because I met him a couple of months later. And actually, he had done the NaNoWriMo, which is the National Novel Writing Month, which is in November. And so I met him and he said, I've written the novel. And I thought, oh, right. So I'm going to.
Now I'm in for it.
Yes, exactly. And so, and I really felt like, well, not really how hard can it be, but just where there's a will, there's a way. Maybe that's an Irish thing. I don't know. But I really felt like, yeah, we can do this. And Erin O'Loughlin, who is my right-hand woman in the magazine, the two of us teamed up, and she's an amazing balance to me, because I'm very much the ideas woman and let's do it, and she kind of reins it all in and is very practical, and but also has amazing ideas, and we worked very well together. And so I think it really stemmed from this very firm belief in what Mike had written. And so, we live in this very intense political climate at the moment. And I just love this dystopian world which he created in this alternate Berlin, but also the very strong political and environmental thread that is in his writing. And we just really believed in it. I have to say, that was really the main thing. I thought, this is an amazing piece of writing. The world has to know about it, and we will be your team. And Mike is one of these jack of all trades. I think he's in like 3 punk bands. He's a sailor. He's a communist. He's so many things. But he had known from his musical days that he had put out records before, but he knows the strength of having a team behind him. And so he was really keen to have myself and Erin on board. And we'd all worked well together on the magazine. And so yeah, we decided let's start this publishing house, and let's get you out there. So
amazing.
Yeah, that's how it started.
So when you decided, okay, I'm going to start a publishing house, then what were your next steps? Because I feel like there's this way that can feel like the beginning of a montage scene in a movie where, people have visions about what that looks like. But I'm interested in what the process actually looked like to create the Wild Word publishing arm.
Oh, do you know, for us, it's very linked to the magazine. So it was very much in the same vein. So we wanted it to look great. We wanted it. I just feel, books are judged by the cover so much of the time. So that was really, we really wanted it to be designed very well. And so I worked with an artist here in Berlin, and myself and Mike worked with them here. And we came up with lots of ideas, lots of sketches, but we really based the cover, and I like the idea of a kind of, oh God, what is that punk band? The Sex Pistols. Which is like, I think it's never mind the bollocks, the very kind of yellow, bright. And so the cover of New Clone City is like this very shiny, bright yellow. It has this car on its side, which sort of symbolizes the dystopian element, and with the magpie, which features strongly as a motif in the novel. And I mean, we worked really hard on creating a great product, and then also at the same time we had this great audience within the Wild Word. And so the Wild Word is, we have a team of 12 columnists, and it's a very international team, but the majority of the writers actually come from, for the readership, is mainly American and German, with the next after that being the UK. But we felt we had this ready-made audience, and so that was a bit of a safety net for us, having created the magazine already. And then, I mean, basically, it's trying to have this vision that we have in our head and making this great product that we will have in our hand. And we tried lots of different printers, and we finally found a great printer in Poland. By chance, we found this great cover designer in Brian Barth, who works with all of the big publishing houses. And he's based here in Berlin, and he brought it all together. And I'd say the biggest hurdle for us was getting distribution here in Germany. My level of German is okay. It would be intermediate, but you know yourself, Caroline. You live in Germany, and I mean we've talked about this in Berlin. Berlin is very anarchic. It's not like the rest of Germany. However, when it comes to book publishing, we had to fill out, I don't know how many forms. It was form after form after form, and they take publishing very seriously here in Germany. I think you've seen it yourself when we've talked about it, that people love books here in Germany. And you go on the U-Bahn, you go on the S-Bahn. I mean, people don't have devices really. If they're reading a book, they read a physical book. And so they take it very seriously. So we had to send samples. They had to read the book. We had to fill so many different forms. And it took 5 months.
Wow.
All together, but we finally got distribution. And the other thing is that they have many bookstores here in Berlin. And I recently saw a New York Times article about independent bookstores in New York City, which I think is around 40. And here in Berlin, we have over 230 independent bookstores. And so, I
didn't realize it was that many. That's amazing.
And growing, like really weekly. There's a new bookstore opening in every different kiez around Berlin because they love books. And so yes, our biggest hurdle was trying to get distribution here in Germany. But I have to say that now that we're really talking to the bookstores, they really love the idea of an English language book written here in Berlin by a now Mike is originally from England, but because a number of different reasons he's now German, but by an author here based in Germany, and they love the story of New Clone City, and so that's been great.
That's amazing. Yeah, it was. I saw it right on the center table in Dussmann's recently.
Yes. Yeah,
which was lovely. And I said, I know that book.
Yeah.
So for those listening, Dussmann's is like the big, a huge store. It's like 4 stories high. It's like the Powell's probably of Berlin is what I would call it. So then you have all the forms, and then this was originally a conversation you had with Mike, like, we'll publish it. So now that you have this all set up, this publishing, what is the plan, and what are you hoping to produce in the future?
So what is the plan for the novel, or what is the plan for the publishing?
For the publishing.
Plan for the publishing. Do you know, we're not, since we brought out the novel, we've been approached by a lot of different writers.
I'm sure. I assume it's like a gate opening and it's like, oh, hi.
Yes. And do you know, I have to say, it is like the thought of having another child.
Yes.
It's not a decision that we would take lightly. We're very committed to New Clone City and to Mike as an author. And Mike is working on a sequel at the moment. But we would love to see, the Wild Word, both the magazine and the publishing house continue to grow. We're really developing the literary side of the magazine, and the Wild Word is not just a literary magazine. We have 12 columnists, and they write from everything from parenting to politics. It's very, very left-leaning and unashamedly so. So we are unashamedly feminist, and we also try and promote issues like the environment and mental health and that was really our mainstay at the beginning, and then we sort of branched out to poetry and to fiction, and I have to say I'm just in touch with a lot of great writers because of it now. And another thing is, which is great, we're being told, I don't know how many times recently actually, that the Wild Word has been recommended on creative writing courses like across America, like Arizona and Alaska and New York, which is great. And so I'm really keen to like touch base with writers from all over the world now, and to promote that as a platform. So, but in terms of publishing, yeah, we'll see how it goes. As I said, we put heart and soul into getting set up. And so, yeah, we're going to see how it goes.
Right. Of course. I mean, I think this is something that I think about a lot, is that there's this balance. You know, you start something like an online magazine or a publishing house, and there's all of this optimism and excitement in creating the process. And then when you kind of open the doors and something has come out, then there's this flood of response in terms of other people who would also like their work to be published. And I'm wondering how you manage that influx and what you're seeing in terms of submissions that are well presented and those that are maybe not so well presented, so that those listening can kind of learn how to be respectful to publishers when they're submitting.
You know, we have guidelines that I put up on the submission guidelines, which we put up on the website, and that's been really helpful. But I have to say, we've got such a high standard of writer sending in their work, and both myself and Erin are writers as well. And I think that's really helped us in how we interact with writers and how we wanted to set up the platform. And we treat like every submission with the utmost respect because we know what it's like to send out work and you know, you create something and you put it out in the world and you're just dying to hear something back from someone, and we know what that feels like. But yeah, we've had such a high standard of writing. But I have to say, with the Wild Word, one of the interesting things is that we have had many writers that had never written before. A number of columnists had never written before, and when I approached them, they were not even considering themselves writers. Our parenting columnist was a friend of mine, and I'd noticed from her posts on Facebook how she wrote with this fierce passion, and that really spoke to me. And then we started to have a number of conversations about it, and then I asked her would she consider writing a column, and then we took her on board. And I mean, she's been on morning television in the US. She gets a lot of fan mail, I have to say, into the magazine, and she just writes from the heart, and that's one of the things that I felt that's really my job as the editor, is that when I get approached by a writer or someone who's interested in writing for the magazine, it has to be from the heart, and that's who I will want to take on in the magazine, and not have they been published before, but just what do they have to say?
Yeah. I think that's really important what you're saying. And I think that a lot of people have this idea that things have to look a certain way, or your life has to be set up in a certain way, or your work has to be a certain kind of work in order to consider yourself a writer. Whereas all of us every day, multiple times a day, write something in order to communicate with each other. Writing is almost as common as speaking. And yet we put these barriers between ourselves and letting ourselves be defined as a writer. What do you think is going on there? This is a topic I think about all the time.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I'm Irish. My parents are Japanese, but I grew up in Ireland, and in Ireland, writers are really put on pedestals, and I think, I'm sure I have a sense this is the same, around the world. Really, I mean, we tend to put our writers up on pedestals, but I do feel like, with social media and everything, there's this sense that if I have something to say, I can put it out there, and maybe all my friends will read it, but at least my friends will read it. And I do believe that not everyone is necessarily a writer. Like writer, inverted commas. However, I do feel that if you have a sense that you have something that you want to communicate, why not? That really, I do. When I think about our parenting columnist, and she would have had a little bit of resistance, and initially, like, oh, really? Do you really think I could do this? And I just felt the urgency with which you wanted to talk about particularly issues around mental health with children, for example. That's one of her big issues. And it's not a topic that you see anywhere really written about. I felt, say it. It's important. What you have to say is important. It's not for writing's sake. It's not self-important. You're really trying to say something to people. You're really trying to bring an issue out there. And maybe this has been a little bit easier for me in terms of what we've published, is that we have gone with issue-led writing. And so I think that's been a little bit easier for me to decide on what gets published. Erin O'Loughlin, who is my partner in terms of the publishing house and the associate editor on the magazine, she is the fiction editor, and Anima Mahadev is our poetry editor, and they come with a different eye for those particular things. But for myself, if I'm publishing for the magazine, and what I saw with Mike, it was with this sense of having something to say.
Amazing. So how has it been? I mean, it's been almost 3 years with the magazine.
Yes. Yeah.
At this point, so you were the pent up racehorse. Yes. And then ran out of the gate and all of this creativity. How has that impacted your life to be working on this magazine and being, building a community around writing and issues and giving people a place to speak, which is so wonderful?
I think this is something innate in me that I really wanted to give a platform and a voice to people who maybe before didn't have this platform. That was very important to me. But I think more for me was to do, it was out of necessity that I created the magazine. I really needed the magazine for myself as a creative person. And for some reason, even though I was a writer, I latched on this kind of harebrained idea of, I'm going to set up a magazine. I have a background in publishing, and I would have worked in the Irish Times for a number of years. And one of my mentors in the Irish Times I worked on the books desk for a number of years with Caroline Walsh, who was the editor, the literary editor there. And she was so wonderful in how she nurtured people, nurtured really anyone, but she really felt that it was her duty to nurture younger women in particular, but writers or anyone who had an interest in the arts. And I was really inspired by this. I really took this on board. And so that was one of the things that I wanted to do with the magazine. But in terms of necessity, I'm 43, and I have here in Berlin my sort of tribe here in Berlin are artists and writers, particularly from Ireland, and we're all in midlife, and we all now are approaching our art and our projects with an increasing sense of urgency. Still, some of us are just are in the middle of this intense parenting phase or coming out of it. And I think what we've learned from that is that that your sense of time gets a little bit warped. So the days are very long, but the years are short. And now that we're coming to this end of this intense parenting phase, now we're looking at our art with this urgency of we have to do it now. Now is the time. and so that's how I really feel about the magazine. I really, and also maybe this is how I approach the publishing, which is like, I have this idea, let's do it now. Yeah. And I know that's with that Elizabeth Gilbert book. She had recently written a book about creativity and about creative ideas. And if you don't seize the day with them, those little ideas, they just float along and pass along to the next person, the next creative person.
Yes. I know that book and I know that story. Absolutely.
And so the nice thing that I have with my group of friends here and my peers here in Berlin is that we all feel, yes, let's do it now. And I think also Berlin allows us to do it. Berlin we have a lot more support here for families. And so it means that maybe we don't have to work 9-to-5 jobs to support our families. Which means we have more time to focus on our creative projects. And also there's an openness here in Berlin. People don't really care what you're doing here in Berlin. They're not really, really that interested. And in some ways that's so liberating because you can just do what you want. You can really do what you want. As long as you have a sense of, this is what I want to say. There isn't a sense where I would have come from in Ireland maybe is that people would have, or you might have a sense that people are judging you, or Ireland in many ways is like a big village, so everyone knows everyone, so it's very liberating being here in Berlin, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's curiosity, but there isn't a sense of, oh, must be nice that you're working on a novel over there, or whatever it is that you're doing. There's like, oh, that's interesting. Which I really love. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that a lot. I think this sense of things happening at midlife is accurate and I think important to note, as well as having published a lot of people who haven't written before, because I think there are a lot of people who maybe have this impulse in their 40s, which I've seen a lot of people have, but then think, oh, it's too late for me. I should have figured this out in my 20s. And now I'm in my 40s and it's too late for me to be a writer. What is your sense of that? And do you notice that a lot of debut writers that come through are not in their 20s when they come to the magazine?
Yes, absolutely. And I find myself approaching a number of people who are a little bit older because, they have all this experience. It's not that we become irrelevant when we reach our midlife. I think in more ways we become even more interesting. It's like the ideas have had time to, I don't know if marinate is the right word, but I think that our perspective is so interesting. I think there's a lot of emphasis on finding the bright new thing in publishing, and that's not very interesting to me. I don't think age is really relevant. And I know this feeling that people have that maybe it's too late. And I think really in your 40s, it's too late, not at all. I don't know whether you know this TV program, This Is Us, which I find really interesting. And there's they have parallel timelines, and one of the characters is a woman, and she's focused. She has this music career. She's a singer, and then they focus her on, and I presume she's supposed to be in her 50s, and they put her in this little two-piece kind of, or this cardigan, and her hair is suddenly this very conservative bob, and she's become middle-aged. And I thought, how dare they do this to this character, this poor woman, And that's particularly what happens to women in mid-age, in our media, in culture, in society, that women get stuck in a cardigan, in a bob with glasses.
Yes.
No, that they've sanitized women, and I find it so insulting.
Yeah, it's terrible. And I think that if we don't take the risk to write different stories, all of us who are out here in our 40s doing creative work and thinking about other things, if you don't take the risk to share it, then there isn't going to be any material to work with that contradicts this cardigan issue.
Yes, absolutely. And the women that I know in midlife have such rich inner lives. I just think that women become more at ease. Like I have found with each decade that has gone by, I've become more at ease in my body, more at ease in myself. The neuroticism that I had in my teenage years and my 20s has gone. And I think that women are becoming more confident in themselves. And I think there is this global Me Too thing where women are sort of shedding this, oh no, we can't say things, this fear that we have. But I have found that I think that's women in middle age. I think that we're starting to not care. We don't give a shit. It's just, I have something to say, and let me say it. And they come with it with an urgency and not a self-consciousness that maybe younger women have.
Yeah, and that there isn't so much of a sense, like you were talking about your columnist, like there isn't this sense of, oh, there's a particular way to say this, and I'm going to follow the style guide of how you write a story or how you write an article, and I'm going to do it the right way, and then hope that I get the stamp of approval, and then I get published. I think that model is really breaking down now.
Yes, absolutely. And, I think women in middle age, there is this, we're kind of liberated in which we don't care as much what other people think, and and that's so important to the artist and the writer self, to remove that constraint and the censor within ourselves, But I totally agree. I was just talking to a playwright recently, actually two playwrights recently, who were saying they felt this urge, both of them women, both in the middle age, who said they wanted to write roles for women, for actors, for women actors, because the roles weren't there, you know?
Yeah, I think it's so important. And I think you were saying something just then as well. And I got so excited that my mind went totally blank, but which I think means we're really onto something. Yes, I've got it. I'm wondering if there has been, in a way, this con of sort of making women in middle age feel less relevant, or this con of, oh, it's too late for me, I've missed the boat, that people have run on them, is a way to sort of hold off the fact that women in mid-age are really powerful and have a lot of experience and important things to say.
Absolutely. I feel that the women that I know are just increasing in power. The women of my age, and I have to say, the men who I see going through middle life are struggling so much more than the women that I know. They're struggling because they've never built up the networks that I noticed that the women that I know. The women that I know have very strong female networks. We band together. We have our friends. We have our mental health support in that way. And or there's a fierceness to women in middle age. And part of it is this mama bear thing that I think we've taken on this role and nurtured. But yes, I do agree. I think that women in middle age are very much powerful. Yeah.
So if you're listening and you feel like it's too late for you, please don't think that anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, really, this idea of too late. I recently talked to an organization here who were very keen to support artists and writers here. And then when it came to it, when I talked to them more about it, and they wanted my feedback, they wanted to reach writers in their 20s and 30s. And I said, but why? Why was it so frustrating? Why would you? Well, it's just so ageist. Why would you focus on this young age group? And it's this idea of hip and trendy and of the new and the bright and shiny. But I think it's just so short-sighted.
I think so too. I mean, I think that when you pair experience and experience over many ages, it's not like we've forgotten what it's like to be in our 20s, in our 40s. It's like we have more perspective because we have the experience of both. And the writer that comes to mind every time when I think about this is Kit DeWall, who had a whole career as a mental health professional and then went on to write prize-winning novels, which she didn't even start publishing, I think, the end of her 40s, beginning of her 50s. I just think about that kind of experience and that people want to read that too. And people want to read that possibly even more than someone who's very young.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that, I mean, as you grow older, you have a richer sense of what it means to be human. You've had relationships come and go. You've learned so many life lessons. Your inner self, your inner life has probably suffered many blows and grown because of it. And I mean, of course, that's going to create richer writing and richer characters. And that's for me, the key to a great novel or a great book are the characters. Yeah, that's it.
I think the image that comes to mind, actually, I haven't thought about this in a few years, but I used to, when I lived in Los Angeles, I used to subscribe to the dance series. And so they had a series of ballets that came through. And my friend and I went together, a girlfriend and I, and we got to one and it was Romeo and Juliet. And we said, all right, we'll go see Romeo and Juliet, whatever. It was like the one we were the least excited about because we liked all the modern experimental stuff. And we went in there and it was so beautiful. We both cried through the entire thing. And we realized at the end, the ballerina was unreal. Possibly the best thing I've ever seen. I wish I remembered her name offhand right now, but we found out later that we think the reason why is that she was in her early 40s. And it's unusual for a prima ballerina to still be carrying a whole show at that point because ballet is, exhausting. But she had so much emotion in every movement. And, she's supposed to be a little 14-year-old girl and she was able to play that, but the pathos in it was astonishing. And I feel like it's the same with writers in midlife. You can still write a young character, but you do it with the knowledge of what comes after.
Absolutely. Yeah, I know. I don't know. There is such a terrible bias against writers in their middle age, and particularly women, right? And women writers suffer a terrible bias anyway. I was reading an article about chick lit, and but yes, there is this terrible bias against women writers, and at the magazine we so try and focus on women writers and feminism and the issue of feminism. It's just the issue of gender equality is just it's never going to become old for me. I'm sorry, it's never, and it's so relevant. It's so relevant in every field. It's so relevant in the arts. It's so relevant in our daily lives and how we interact with our spouse or our peers at work or wherever, I just love the fact that we're in this new period where so many people are becoming aware of it, and the importance of it.
Definitely. And I think it's so important for people to have places where they can read about these issues, but also places where new voices can come through. So I think it's so wonderful that you've created this space and are continuing to do so.
Oh, thank you.
It's been really, really lovely talking to you today. And I'm so grateful we had the chance to talk sort of behind the scenes about the process of Nucleon City coming out, but also the sort of underpinnings and the philosophy that surrounds the whole process of the Wild Word.
Thanks, Caroline. It was lovely to talk to you.
Thank you for listening to the Secret Library podcast. The show is produced by me, Caroline Donahue, and Frederick Barry McWilliams Jr., my tireless audio engineer. To get show notes for this episode and all other episodes, please visit secretlibrarypodcast.com. To get updates, literary love, and notification when new episodes are posted, sign up there for Footnotes, my newsletter. And to learn about life coaching with me to work on building your writing life, visit carolinedonahue.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. Gold stars to everybody who leaves a rating and review on iTunes. We're so grateful. Until next time, happy reading.